every inch of space was full. You couldn't get another box in the store. So you have to have inventory to make business or make sales. That's lesson number 2. These lessons go on forever. They are timeless. Location, inventory. Next lesson, floor plan. When we got to the store, you had one aisle of merchandise. That was it. The store itself was small, maybe 700 feet. That was it. All right? You know, think about 7-Eleven when you think about this. 700 feet had one aisle of merchandise. You had no product to sell. You couldn't make sales. It's too small. So he turned the store around and went from sideways to forwards and added 3 aisles into the store. By doing this, you can get more merchandise into the store. So you pack as much in as you can. And today, it would be illegal. I always say the aisles were 2 feet, so you had to walk down the aisles like this. This is Brooklyn, 1970-something. You could do things like that. Today, it would be illegal with ADA. But back then, you could do it. And all we cared about was getting merchandise in the store. And that's what we did. So, floor plan. You have to maximize your potential to do as much business as possible. I wrote down it has one aisle. Back then, yep, that's what I just said, so fine. Number 4, expense. Lesson number 4 is expense. My father never believed in spending money on fixtures. He bought used fixtures. They were ugly. They were different colors. He didn't care. He said, no money on fixtures. All my money is in inventory. If you have enough money for everything, it's one thing. But if you got a tight budget, put all your money into fixtures and you'll have nothing to sell. I'll learn this lesson later in life. We'll get to that one. But I remember that he bought these fixtures. They were ugly green. And his answer to me was, I'll fill them with merchandise. Nobody will ever see them. Doesn't matter. You fill them up, you'll never see the fixtures. So expense. Number 5, pay your employees what they're worth. When I worked for my father, I used to work on weekends, went to school. I was in high school, junior high school, elementary school. I used to take the bus to work and work with them. I worked about a 12-hour day on the weekend. Saturday, Sunday, that was my shift. My mother would take off. I worked from 8 in the morning to 9 at night, from opening to closing. My father would pay me $10 for the day. Now you say, $10 for 12 hours or 11 hours? Man, was I a rich kid back then. Back then, $10, I was the richest kid I knew. When I went to lunch at school, you can get 2 slices of pizza and a Coke for $1. All right? And that was the lunch special. It was 2 slices of pizza, good pizza, for $1. So $10 in my pocket, $20 for the weekend. It was great money. He paid me what I was worth. That goes for all your employees. Pay them what they're worth. If you underpay them, you're going to lose good employees. I learned that lesson later in life. Lesson number 6, customer service. Being a neighborhood store, everybody knows your name, and you know, and everybody's your friend. Every morning, the old ladies would buy a quart of milk. Every day, the men would come buy their cigarettes and beer. Of course, I was allowed to sell beer at the age of 12 back then. And we made some pleasantries with bullshit. Everybody was your friend. We actually carried what we call, it's not debt. There was no charge cards back then, really. People would, we'd give people credit. Basically, they would buy merchandise, we'd take the receipt, they would sign their name on it, we put it in the drawer. First of the month came, they would come and pay off their credit each month. And we ran, that was our credit card back then. There was no such thing as a credit card, so that's how we did it back then. And that was basically it. We were part of the neighborhood, we were friendly. Hi, how you doing today? What's going on? Good customer service. You go into a store, you're friendly, right? Everybody knows you, you know your name. It's like Cheers, the TV show. Lesson 7. This is an interesting one. I think you guys will get a kick out of this one. I call this one Pick Your Battles. All right. We were basically a 7-Eleven store, but we never sold hot coffee. Now, you gotta say, how do you not sell hot? We sold cold cuts, we sold deli, we sold produce, everything. We never sold hot coffee. And the reason we never sold hot coffee is because we weren't allowed to. And it wasn't the landlord said no. The landlord didn't care what I did. Well, down the block from us, remember, this is Brooklyn. It's back in the 70s. It was a little different back then. There's an Italian cafe back there. There's about 4 stores down. He would sell cappuccino coffee. Now this is about 20 years before Starbucks. There's no such thing as a Starbucks back then. So if you wanted a cappuccino, you'd have to go to the Italian cafe. And in the cafe was a man named, he's dead now, Mr. Leo. That was his name. I didn't know anything more. And my father went to Mr. Leo and said, Mr. Leo, can I sell coffee? Mr. Leo said, I sell the coffee, you sell the milk. You cannot sell coffee. My father said, okay, Mr. Leo. All right. Mr. Leo had a lot of power. Nobody messed with Mr. Leo. Mr. Leo, behind his Italian coffee shop, had a nice gambling hall. Every month, he would buy a case of cards for my father. He'd give them to him for wholesale, like $300 or $400 worth of case of cards he'd go through every month. One day, many years later, Mr. Leo got gunned down the streets. So now the store does sell coffee today. All right, pick your battles. Lesson 8. I call this one, hire the right employees. All right. My brother Michael, I have two brothers. Steven's the oldest, Michael's the middle, I'm the youngest. My brother Michael decided that he had enough of school at the age of 16. He wasn't going anymore. My parents tried everything. They couldn't make him go to school. He beat the hell out of him. He wasn't going to school. He didn't care. So my parents said, if you want to live in the house, you're not going to school, you got to come to work for us. All right? So Michael became a full-timer in the store. At the age of 16, I guess you can drop out legal in most states, I guess. Your parents signs it. My parents signed it. Mike was a horrible student his whole life, so it didn't matter that much. So we put Michael to work in the business, and Michael was great in the business. All right? How can I explain this? Michael worked in the business. He worked hard in the business. My father had been in the business for a few years now. Imagine if you worked 7 days a week from open to close, what would happen to you? Every day you work open to close, 7 days a week. You get a little, you're like a prisoner. You get antsy after a while. One day you just can't take it anymore. So Michael basically was running the store. Well, over time Michael got into an argument. He was a little impulsive, a little temperamental, and he quit. Also my father had the store back again. He was running the store again full time. Well, the thing that comes from this is that, I'm going to say this now, it's not really, I'm not saying it right, but lesson number 9 is do not hire family. Ever since Michael went to the business, I've seen Michael 5 times in the last 30 years maybe. Michael still resents what happened in the business 30 years ago. He's still upset with the family. And it's not just for this, there's other things. When the business was sold eventually, Michael didn't get a cut of it. And I'll speak to you in the next section about that. All right. So do not hire family, and you'll thank me for that someday. All right. At this time, I was about 19 years old now. I'm growing up. I was in the business my whole life. I worked with my father. We had the most wonderful conversations in the store. My best times were working with my father in the store. Talking about anything, talking about business. It was great times. Well, when I was 19, I was in college. I went to school for electronic technology was the term back then. It was New York City Technical College. I wanted to repair IBMs. Now, let me tell you where computers were back in this is probably 1981. Computers in 1981 were Tandy Radio Shacks. There was no such thing as Bill Gates, no such thing as Windows. We worked on Tandy Radio Shacks in basic language, and that's all we did. And my job was to learn how to repair them with a soldering iron and changing parts on the circuit board. That was computers back then. I went to college for it, and I was struggling a little bit. I was never a good student either, so runs in the family. And one day I was working in the store. I was working the weekends like I had done for years and years. And I got my next lesson. My next lesson is, do not stick your finger into the socket of a fluorescent light bulb, even if the power is off. Does everybody hear what I just said? Yeah. Do not stick your finger into the socket of a fluorescent light bulb, even if the power is off. Well, I went to change the light one day, and I stuck my finger in the socket, and I got blown across the store. It shocked me like all hell. And I said to myself, I'm in electronic technology. I'm going to get electrocuted the rest of my life. Do I really want to do this? And the answer was no. At that point, I decided college wasn't for me anymore. That will become one of the biggest mistakes of my life. We'll come back to that later on. I want you to remember that. Dropping out of college was one of the biggest mistakes I ever made. And I spoke to my father, I spoke to my brother Steven, who had just come back from the Navy, Steven, my oldest brother, and asked to come into the business full time. My father didn't want to be in the business anymore. He basically had enough. And Steven wasn't doing anything after the Navy, so me and him took over the grocery store. Me and Steven was on the same path as me. We did good. Mike was out of the business. My father was really out of business, and we actually paid off my father with notes, just like we had done with the luncheonette, where we give my father notes every month to pay it off. Well, the lesson we learned here is, I had a girlfriend named Deborah. My brother Steven had a girlfriend named Bonnie. I had in-laws, Deborah's in-laws too. And we're all taking food out of the business. Now, remember the lesson. Don't mess with your inventory, right? You need inventory. So we're all living off the business, and now I'm taking a $300 salary, so is my brother. Remember, $300 back then was a lot of money, triple tax-free. I was living pretty good. I was living in my parents' house, $300 in my pocket, at Atlantic City on the weekends. I was living good. The store couldn't afford it. We reached out of the inventory, we took out too much cash, we blew it there. And the business was struggling after it had not struggled. Well, at the same time, I want to show you, this is me. I want to show you the business today. We'll go back a little bit. Okay, that deli grocery is that same store. All right. There's something here, it's hard to see, I apologize. If you ever watched Sex and the City, has anybody seen Sex and the City? Amanda fell down something one time, right, at the retail store. She was walking by and she fell down a little hatch in the street. That's a little hatch in the street. Well, we had a new landlord at the time, and we had ourselves a big rent of $600 a month. We had this rent for about 10 years. And we got a new landlord, he would come, he'd say, close the door, somebody's gonna fall, I'm gonna get sued. We're like, yeah, go to hell, who cares, right? So all of a sudden the lease is coming to an end, and the landlord hates our guts, right? Landlord hates our guts. And on a good day, there is no landlord that I like in this world. Don't take it personal if you guys are landlords, I just don't like landlords. And we're about to renew the lease, he's like, I'm not renewing your lease, go to hell. And we had no power. You don't really own anything when you own a business. You own your shelves, you own your inventory, but you don't own the building. You only have a lease for the building. It's kind of like living in an apartment. So without a lease, we're nothing. The business is worth $200,000 to sell. You know, we spoke to the milk company, so if we want to sell it, it's worth $200,000. He'll get us a buyer. And we went back and forth, and finally, me and my brother Steve went to the landlord. We went to his office, and we got on one knee and we cried. And we cried. I said, please renew our lease. And his words to us was, go to hell. I'll do one thing for you. I'll let you sell the business. The new owner can get his own lease. So that's what we needed.